Good morning and welcome to the David and David on Real Estate podcast. We are today on episode number 161, and we have a very special guest joining us this morning. We have Jodi Simpson, a brand new Sutton Summit agent. Jodi, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate being here for sure.
No, we're so delighted to have you on. You literally just got your license like a minute
Yep.
ago, and you're already making a huge splash. We can't wait to have a conversation with you and hear all about your journey.
Thank you. Let's get into it. I'm excited.
Yeah,
Jody,
so are we.
it was great for me to meet you a couple weeks ago at the Sutton Summit Awards Gala, and which is always a fun event to be in. David, great job as always hosting that and including us in it. It was fun to be there, but one of the things I really enjoyed was an opportunity to meet with you then and just have a discussion about what goes on at my insight at Sutton Summit and how our firm has interacted over the time. And I think you were still in the decision-making process then, if I recall.
Yeah, that was right. Exactly, exactly. And David, thank you again for the invite. I think that really helped to, solidify my decision of which brokerage was a good fit because it was kind of like a peek behind the curtain, right? I like to talk to other agents who work at the brokerage, to meet some of the partners like you, David, as well. And I think like networking events like that, or social events, I should say, are just a really good way of meeting people on like a more like personal level, for sure.
Yeah, 100%. Real estate can be a very lonely business, right? You're out there, you're commissioned sales rep, you're fending for yourself. So we really enjoy having everybody in the same room, and it's not often that that happens. We have two major events a year where everybody sort of gets in the same room. So, even as a part of the leadership team, like we really thoroughly enjoy meeting all the agents and having everybody in the same room. So it was really wonderful that you were able to make it and to meet a lot of the team. And I watched you very closely, and I was super impressed with your networking abilities. Because I think by the end of the night, I don't think there's a realtor in that room that you haven't talked to, that you haven't met, that you haven't shook hands with. And that is a milestone, a cornerstone of successful to be professional. You have to go out there and you got to market your business. You got to shake hands. You got to get in front of people, and it's no different in real estate. And
Yeah.
in our industry, a lot of the professionals, don't do that job of networking with other agents, but all the top performers were in that room.
Right.
And a lot of them call me every day and say, David, I have leads. I have, all these leads I don't want to deal with. I don't want to handle them. And here is a young agent that, has the audacity and the confidence to go out there and really market herself and introduce herself to everybody. It was just great to see.
Yeah. And I think like for new agents and for all agents, to be honest, like it's always good to be comfortable being uncomfortable, right? So like really putting yourself out there. And even if you might be an introvert or don't like to socialize, it's the nature of the business, right? So you really have to like put yourself out there and network. It's so important for sure.
Yeah, I think having someone like you there is also a bit of a wake-up call for some of the veteran agents that are out there that get a little complacent in what they do, and then they say, "Oh, because you're all in competition with each other. Like even though
Right.
it's friendly competition when you're part of a great group like at Sutton, but there's still some competition out there. And I think okay, fresh face, fresh attitude, outgoing personality, new generation of agent. This is what I'm competing against. So some of them I think I got to up my game and I got to get out of my shell and I got to get out there too. So, and that's one of the purposes of having some of these social functions and getting people together because everybody's got a little bit of a different style and brings something else to the table. And you're no different. I think you add like a nice piece to the puzzle, and then at the same time you can talk to these other agents and see what they're all about and what their successes
Right.
are from and follow some of their leads too. But you'd be surprised that people look and go, oh, there's you know some new competition just arrived and look, she's outgoing, she's interested, she's committed and all that stuff. And they go, I better, get my game together.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jody, tell us what kind of inspired you to pursue a career in real estate? Why real estate out of all the different career options out there?
Yeah, actually, like real estate was never on the radar. It was never really my plan. But I started investing in 2013. I bought like my first investment property, and I've been buying, selling, being a landlord. And after all that time, I was like, why not explore real estate as a career option? So that's kind of like how it came to be in a sense.
I love that. And we'll get into your investment journey in a little bit, but what persuaded you to kind of like, get into real estate investing?
Yeah. So I think every immigrant or everyone's dream is to buy a house, right? So after I finished university, all my friends were traveling to Europe, traveling to Asia, taking a year off. And I was like, I need to work. I need to save money. And I had this master plan to buy a house. I didn't really think it was investing. I was just like, I want to buy a house to rent it out and make some money. And that's kind of like where it started.
I love that. Not a lot of realtors, not a lot of people have that thought process. So, I see a lot of myself in you, and I love that mentality. I love that thinking. That real estate is a stepping stone to building wealth as opposed to an ends to meet a means to an end, right? So, I love that. That's really awesome, and it's a great way of looking at real estate from that lens.
And
Yeah.
I'm feeling guilty because I went backpacking in Europe when I finished.
I envied everyone who did that. I really did. And that's the thing. Like, I didn't have the finances to do that and I already had like OSAP to pay off. So I was just trying to make the math make sense. And I just really couldn't afford it at that time. And I just thought, if I bought this house, then I could eventually go to Europe and not worry. I could probably take off a year from work, down the road. So, David, I am so jealous that you did that. But yeah.
So how many years ago was that? Like, just give us a time frame.
This was 2013. So I was in like my early, I guess mid 20s when I bought my first house.
What were you doing then between 2013 and 2025?
Yeah, so I like professional wise or investing wise.
No, professionally, like,
Yeah, so my degree is in marketing and I had a pretty like linear career path. Like I went from like one marketing job to the next like senior marketing job. So I did that from 2013 to up to last year where I was like the head of production at a tech company. So again, very like marketing brand backgrounds, no really like focus on real estate from again from a career path. But I was like, you know what? Like I've been working 9 to 5 for most of my career. And though it's been very satisfying and I've learned a lot, I want to bet on myself, right? Like I want to do something for me. And that's why I really just took the plunge with no safety net, right? Because again, with real estate, there's no safety net, there's no steady income coming in, but really just wanted to take that leap and just like really, bet on myself in that regard.
I
that's
love that.
great. Like that's quite a leap, I think, from a 9 to 5 salaried employee position, steady income with a path to grow and earn more and things like that, to jump off that to go into business for yourself as a realtor and be self and bet on yourself is a big decision. Good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really was terrifying, but it really was. It's good.
One of my favorite memes as an entrepreneur is the idea that an entrepreneur is somebody that jumps off of cliff and builds a parachute on the way down. And when you really think about entrepreneurship, that's really what it's like to starting a business. You have no idea where you're gonna have to pivot, where your business is gonna take you, what the path to success is gonna look like, but you have to bet on yourself and believe in the process and start. Um, I love Bill Gates analogies too. If every bug was fixed, then Windows wouldn't have launched in the first place, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes it's about just believing in yourself and getting started, as opposed to seeing a clear path forward all the way to the finish line, and knowing everything, right? So that's the beauty of entrepreneurship. It's the unknown, and it's betting on yourself, like you said. And I think
Yeah,
it's something that every entrepreneur has to go through.
So
yeah,
now you've made the decision. So now the first step, you got to get licensed.
right.
Right? You got to go through that process. So you were doing that while you were still working.
So I started. So my process was probably a little bit longer than most people's. I started my first course through Humber a couple years ago. I tried to do it with while working, and my job was really demanding. I was always like flying around for work and working late hours, so it was really hard for me to balance. So I started the first course, passed the first course, and then I kind of put it on the back burner. Then last year, when I parted with from my job, I had the time, right? So I had lots of time, and that is when I had the mental, tunnel vision and plan to really, take this on full time. So then I just like plowed through the courses. And then I did pretty much course 2 to 5 and those 2 simulations from I think like June up till February of this year.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. And what was that process like?
Yeah, so it is a lot of reading. So lots of reading, lots of theory. You get to learn all the essentials of real estate, which is really good. I do think there's probably a little bit too much detail about some of the structural things, especially like I think, a realtor needs to have like a holistic view and understand like the house and, what makes up a home and, the roofing and all those sorts of things. But I don't think we need to know as much detail because at the end of the day, we're going to be referring it to like a third party professional, right? So lots of theory. I don't necessarily learn the best way like that. I'm more of a doer. So there were 2 simulations at the very end of the course, which were very good. And that was like a, in person or over Zoom discussion with a facilitator. So there's like other team members or other, individuals. And then we're able to like role play things. We're able to like have breakout groups and like talk about things. How would we explain a clause or schedule A to a potential client? So I really loved those courses because it was more like acting things out and being able to like talk to other people versus just like reading. So love that part, but I totally understand that you need to really build the foundation. But I just wish there was more, I guess, in-person sessions overall.
Yeah, a lot of people have really positive feedback in the simulations, and I think that's the closest to real world you're going to get.
Yeah,
So I love that, and we've even talked about bringing that into the brokerage, right? So
right.
that's something that we're going to look at very closely as well.
Yeah, I guess the one thing I kind of wish they also helped you do was, you're building a business, right? So it's like, how do you generate leads? How do you negotiate in real life? How do you build your brand? Like, I think those would have been some like helpful topics to discuss because that's the reality of it. Like, I think a lot of realtors, they finish and they're like, how do I build my brand? Like, a lot of them are probably working for someone. They've never been an entrepreneur. They don't know where to begin, right?
Yeah, that's a flaw I think that's consistent in their education system. You don't get a practical training, and it was no different. When I went to law school, like there was like zero that you learn in law school that
Mhm.
teaches you how to be a lawyer. It teaches you legal knowledge, but not how to practice as a lawyer. How do you go get a client? How do you serve a client? What firm is good for you? How do you partner with other people or not partner with other people? And like you don't get a lot of that practical advice when you're in law school, and certainly not in bar ads or anything. And I think it's the same in your profession. You spend so much time at the beginning just understanding the terminology and
Mhm.
everything, which I think is a good thing because you have to remind yourself I think as a realtor, when you're face to face with a potential client who's never bought a house before or bought one 20 years ago, and you start talking to them about certain things, and they don't understand some of the terminology you're using
Right.
because you have to remind yourself how new it was to you when you went through this and you're doing all this reading. They don't understand what you're talking about. They don't know the difference between a buyer and a purchaser or a seller and a vendor, and just simple things like that can be
Yeah.
confusing. So you fall back and make sure you're talking to clients that way too, that you're taking them right from the beginning, right through the process.
Yeah. A lot of it is foundational, right? So like when you become a lawyer, when you become a CPA, when you become, any sort of a professional, they teach you a really strong foundation.
Mhm.
And then it's up to you to sort of build up on top of that foundation and actually build, the skyscraper or the building. And each building looks so different from each other, but the foundations are all the same, right? So I think that's no different, but I agree that it's a flaw in our educational system, right? I think our every educational system should be a lot more sort of practical. And I think that that's why a lot of people prefer, a college degree as opposed to a university, because university is way more theory and college is way more, you know, getting you actually prepared for real life. But when you kind of counter the two together, university students always make more because what they're able to sort of build at the end of having a university degree is very different than having a certain skill set that you learn that you have to kind of rely and stay into the confounds of that skill sets, right? But as an entrepreneur, the path is very different because it's so unique for each person.
Yeah, and the licensing process is giving you the foundation, and then the next phase of your career is it's sort of the brokerage's role to give you that guidance about how to be an entrepreneur and how to go and get business and be a professional and build your own business. So I think the licensing requirements gives you that, and then they just sort of rely on, okay, now we're going to talk about that, how you pick a brokerage and everything, but that's a key choice because like, you chose, David and Sabia to give you the guidance and help you build your business. So I think that's where they fill in that gap.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. I think with that expectation that the brokerage would then help to make that transition easy, then it works, right? I think, and that's why it is so important to choose the right brokerage, because if your brokerage is not supportive and is not going to help you build your brand, build a strategy to generate leads, then, you kind of are just left to like, figure things out on your own, which can be very challenging, right?
100%. Yeah. So what's a misconception that you had going into the licensing course and now having finished? What's a misconception that you had about the whole process?
Oh, that when I get my license, I'm going to be like instantly successful. I'm going to be getting leads as soon as I finish. I'm going to have people like knocking on the door to buy a house from me or for me to sell their house. So I think that's it. That was one big one.
Yeah, and I think you're being really hard on yourself, Jody, because like how long have you been licensed for now?
Probably a week and a bit.
A week and a bit. And in that week and a bit, you had one offer on a lease.
Yeah.
You had one listing presentation already under your belt,
Yes.
which
That's
is like absolutely incredible. I think for most agents, that would have been a good, 3 to 4 months, let alone, a number of days, right? So we're super proud of what you've accomplished so far, and I think, out of a lot of the new realtors that we've met, I think you're going to do really well. Being a realtor is not easy. It's
Mhm.
very challenging, right? There's a lot to learn, right? Because you're building a career from the ground up. So, uh,
Right.
I think you fast track through a lot of that. And I think there's still, a lot of work left to be done, but we're super excited. We're super excited to be on this path with you, and we're super excited to sort of guide you on this journey of success together.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited for this partnership for sure and working together. And yeah, I'm excited about it for sure.
Amazing, amazing.
And then I
Oh,
have one more, just to add
sure, yeah,
to, yeah,
absolutely.
the cost of things. I think, at least for myself, I'll speak for myself. When I finished, I thought, yes, you get licensed or registered with RICO, and that's it. That's the big cost. And then the splits, commission splits. But there's also possibly like desk fees. There's your local real estate board, like whichever one you join, there's also a fee there. Fees like your open house signs, your for sale signs, business cards, if you're printing things, printer costs, like there's like so many other things that I'm not sure that, new realtors really think about. So really budgeting and making sure they have enough, funds to cover those costs.
Yeah.
Right. Including in that would be, social media costs that you're gonna
Right.
do some videos, you're gonna, do a podcast. I don't think we charge for guests on this podcast, David. Do we? No
Oh,
fees.
we do. It's 20 grand. We just
I love that you're telling me now as I'm
yeah, but Jody, even having some funds in your account just to sustain your standard of living as you wait for the commission checks to come in. I
Right.
remember when I got first licensed, it took me about I did my first deal pretty quickly, just like yourself. But then, I didn't budget for the fact that it takes 4 months for the deal to close. And I remember waiting for the closing day. I was like, okay, when is, I did the deal, but the closing date happens, right? And then, back in those days, it took about 3 to 4 weeks after closing dates. We didn't have electronic funds transfers. I had to wait for the check to come in. Took a little bit while for that transaction to actually close and get paid. So as a new agent, even waiting for that to happen and then for that date to come, is tolling on you, right? So I think any business owner, and I always say, like, say you open up a retail store, like imagine the expenditures that it takes and the resources that it takes to open up a location somewhere, like a physical location. You got to do renovations, you got to set up internet, you got to set up phones, you got to do marketing, right? So I think, realtors, as an entrepreneur, have it a lot easier than some other entrepreneurs out there, but you are right, there's still a lot of other expenses that you have to budget for as a business owner to get your business off the ground. And it's not easy, but it's something that we all had to do, and we all have to we all have to kind of be comfortable with that, right? And invest in yourself and bet on yourself, just like you said earlier.
Mhm.
And David Corman, your business is no exception, right? I mean, if you start a law firm, the expenditures are really big, and your licensing requirements are probably a lot more tedious than our licensing requirements in order to keep your trust accounts and be registered with the law society, and stay on top of all your dues every year. It's really no different than what we have to go through.
There's a lot of expenses, a lot of overhead that you have to go through, and you got to deal with all that, and you haven't worked on a file yet and got paid for anything. Our firm, we happen to be, we're really like a real estate boutique law firm, so we're very transaction orientated, which is good in terms of cash flow. Normal, as soon as there's a market, because we get paid when transactions close. So there's always that cash flow. It's not like we close a transaction, then we send out an invoice and then have to wait till someone pays us 2 months or 3 months later and then chase them down. Like we have money on closing, which is good. Law firms that do litigation and stuff, it's different. They might be getting retainers and stuff, but then they're sending invoices out and they have receivable issues, and it's a whole different thing that people didn't warn us about in law school. And I used to be part of a firm where we had a real strong real estate department, commercial real estate and lending, but we also had a full litigation team in there as well. And we used to go to our partners meetings, and the commercial guys like me, like, we have no receivables, the cash flow's there, we're doing, and our litigation partners like haven't collected anything for 6 months. Like, they're so far behind, and we're all yelling at them, and it's a different animal. And that happens sometimes. And sometimes, we see litigation firms breaking off from other firms because sometimes it's the commercial firms that I've had enough of you guys. Like, we're trying to run a business here and we can't be chasing people. Anyways, it's different, but every business has that. There's always some overhead. There's always, at certain expenditures that you have to make. And every year you look at it and say, can I make this one now? Which is more important? You you got to figure out what's important. And we're doing that right now. Market's not good right now. We're looking very carefully at all our costs and overhead. And at the same time, what can we do to grab more market share? Every year is a new challenge. So your business, you're going to find those challenges. It's year one, it's week one, but
Yeah.
you're going to have the similar a year from now. We have, get you back on, see how it went for the year, and you'll have a whole bunch of new challenges in front of you.
100%.
Yeah.
And the last idea I want to end with this is that every successful business has to invest in themselves, and we speak about this a lot, right? So, um, I want realtors to really sort of invest more in their business, because I think when you bet on yourself, that is the best investment you can make, right? So investing in lead generation, investing in the right technology, investing in the right brand, it's so crucial that realtors do that, and don't just rely on the brokerage. Like, I've got my license, I have my brokerage, I'm all set. That's
Right.
not how it works, right? Realtors still, beyond those two things, they still need to really invest in their own brand. They really need to invest in making sure that their brand grows and that their business grows as well. And the ones that don't, really fall behind, right? So as a new realtor, being comfortable with that, and putting money aside, and we'll
Yeah.
guide you through that process as well, to make the right investment into your own business is paramount to your success.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And you know what? And the thing is, just like with any business, the upfront cost is always a lot more. But once you've kind of established that, then it'll start to taper down, right? So I
100%.
think like, and again, like setting yourself up for success, putting your best foot forward. So investing in like, your branding, whatever you're looking, social media, all those sorts of things. And just the basis of how you want to operate your business, right? Because it's a reflection of you, like you're your brand. And if you don't invest in
1000%.
yourself, that could affect like your success, right?
100%. 100%. Awesome, Jody. Well, it was great having you on. We're going to have you on the next episode, where we're going to talk about how you chose the right brokerage. And I think that's going to be a great conversation for a lot of the new realtors that are thinking about getting into the industry, because that's, a really important decision. And we're so happy that you chose us. But we're going to talk through all your decisions, and we're going to talk how you came to make that decision, and dive into that. So thank you so much for joining us, and we'll have you on the next episode where we continue our conversation together.
Thank you for having me again, David and David.
It was great. Thank you.
Our pleasure. Thanks.